Welcome to our live viewers. Welcome to our replay audience. This is the Get Better, Be Better conversation. I am Dr. Mays, owner of Iron Physical Therapy. We are located in Caldwell and Midland Park. And today I have a tremendous story. I'll be chatting with Rachel Wyman. She is the owner of Montclair Bread Co. She is the founder of Fueled by Doughnuts Running Club. She is an upcoming author of a book that's coming out soon. She is a fellow Lululemon ambassador, and she's a kick-ass runner. So this really is an incredible human being that I have coming on here. And we will be talking and discussing her story of resilience. We'll be discussing not only her recovery and comeback from this devastating bike injury that happened back in 2018, but we'll also talk a little bit about her overcoming obstacles as a business owner within the food industry now during COVID times. So this is going to be an inspiring story. You're going to want to share it with your friends. So we're going to dive back in. We were just getting into you talking about your journey to becoming the talented athlete that you are, because you said you were a negative athlete somehow.
Yeah. I was a negative athlete. I only joined the tennis team in high school because they were the ones that partied. I would definitely do anything I could to avoid gym class and hide out under the stadium stairs and smoke cigarettes. Which I quit before my daughter was born. She is 12 now. And I had 3 babies in 4 years, and I really like to eat donuts. And so, the combination of all of the pregnancies and all of the donuts I was consuming at the bakery led me to believe that it was important I start moving my ass. And because I was not going to be clear, eating less donuts has never been an option. So I had to think of a creative way that I could continue to eat donuts and not keep gaining the weight that I was. So I joined with some other moms the YMCA every January, hosted this group, fitness weight loss challenge thing. And through that, I met Adrienne Felder. She's the founder of Architect Studios.
Yeah, she's great.
And she specializes in high-intensity interval training. When I started with Adrienne, I could not do a sit-up. Not one. I had to roll on my side to sit up.
So not even
story. Ask Adrienne. I will never forget the day in Brookdale Park. She's like, okay, 10 sit-ups, and I couldn't do one. So I stuck with Adrienne, and I started going to her 3 times a week, and she opened Architect. I think it was a year after I opened the bakery, but we have the same anniversary for business. She left the Y and did her own thing. And, running, definitely not an option. I had no cardio in me at all. And then Montclair Bread Company hit 4,000 likes on our Facebook page. And I decided, I got feedback from the community, and somebody suggested that I host a 4K run to commemorate this.
Wow, okay.
And so anyway, sorry, I'm distracted. I keep seeing the comments. It's awesome. So I hosted this 4K fun run. I'd never even been to a 5K before in my life, so I didn't know a 4K wasn't a thing.
Wow.
And all 125 people came out in 2 weeks of trying to organize this thing, because I promised them donuts at the end. And
that always brings people out.
Yeah, and I had all these people, and I'm like, oh man, I'd be such an asshole if I let them run this and I didn't do it with them. And so I went out. It's the anniversary of this. I think it's the 7-year anniversary of this day that I ran my first mile. And in my beat up sneakers from TJ Maxx that I should have even been walking in them, let alone running. But I ran that, and I did it with friends, and I chatted with them the whole time, and I realized that nobody teaches you how to run. You think like,
Right.
oh, I'm gonna go out and run today, and you run as fast as you can because that's what running is, right? But running's so much more. It's about, learning that you can have a conversation and breathe and go slower and,
absolutely,
and
enjoy it.
But
maybe.
Nobody teaches you that. And so, my friend Kira that was baking with me, she's a marathon runner, and she's like, you should sign up for something, sign up for a race, and it'll keep you focused, and then you'll keep running.
So you did your first run with a marathoner.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so Kira told me to sign up for something so I would keep motivated and keep running, and be consistent. And she directed me towards the Hal Higdon training plans.
Yes.
And so I couldn't sign up for a 5K because I just ran 2.2 miles in this 4K. So a 5K was just, that was too much. I signed up for a half marathon.
Oh my gosh.
So from December to March, I trained for a half marathon. And I ran my first half marathon, and it was Sleepy Hollow. I didn't know what an elevation chart was. This race had 1,600 feet of elevation in it.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know that. Not even when I lined up on the starting line did I know that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I ran.
Well, you've always been go big or go home, You've always been that.
Right.
Just do
it. So I ran it in an hour and 50 minutes. And then I realized that I wasn't bad at this thing.
Yeah,
this running thing. And so the next morning after that half marathon, I had a business meeting with an associate of mine that I've been working with for years and years. And he knows that I was not an athlete. I mean, this is the guy that we, go out drinking after conferences together and eating lots of food and everything. So, we had this meeting, and I told him, I just ran a half marathon yesterday. And he's like, holy crap.
What?
And he said, would you, why don't you sign up for the New York City Marathon? And at this point, the lottery had already happened, and I might have put my name in it, and it closed. And I was like, well, yeah, you can't get into that. He's like, I know people. And he said, well, would you do it if I got you in? And I said, well, I mean, if you get me in, but I have to train for this, so I need a commitment from you that you'll get me in.
Get you there,
I'm not going to run all those miles.
For nothing.
Anyway, we called each other's bluff. I ran the New York City Marathon 11 months after my first mile.
Wow,
and,
that's amazing. That's all she wrote. Oh my gosh, that's quite the journey from negative athlete to marathon kick-ass runner now. So incredible. So
fueled by donuts the whole way.
Yes, absolutely. So in kind of starting to get towards kind of the crux of why we're here, most of us haven't suffered a major injury, but we've all experienced physical setbacks to some degree. That in essence, some of those folks might, or we might think that was truly debilitating, as if it were a major injury, but it really wasn't. How have you handled some of your basic, simple overuse injuries, kind of prior to what we're leading up to?
Well, I met you. I had my first bout with injury was shin splints. And this is honestly the reason why I was never a runner before. I dealt with shin splints as a tennis player. I joke that I was a negative athlete. I did well in tennis, not well by any standards, but I enjoyed playing tennis, and the shin splints would always get in the way. And it was the reason why I never ran any farther than once around the track before. And I came to you, and you gave me some stretches to do and some things to prepare myself. And we also at that point discussed my form, and we discussed what shoes I was wearing. And I fixed the shoe thing, and I started doing these calf stretches, which I to this day do.
Yeah, good.
And I got rid of the shin splints. And then I, again, like most new runners, I wanted it all. I ran all the miles. I ran all the races,
miles,
back to back to back. After the New York City Marathon, I ran the Philly half marathon, and 3 days later, I raced the Ashenfelter on Thanksgiving Day. And a week after that, I got my first stress fracture.
Yeah. First boot.
So I was in a boot, and I was very sad about it.
Yeah.
But I used that as an opportunity to finally correct my form. I was a heel striker, and the only way, well, one of the good, hard, fast ways to rectify that was to come back from nothing. When I started to build back after being down for 3 months in a boot, I came back and reformed my heel strike. So now I'm more, I know I'm supposed to be midfoot. I'm a little more forefoot, but you know, that was the opportunity that I used. And then my next injury, also somewhat overuse, the peroneal tendon, which is
sneaky.
Oh man, it's a nasty one.
It is
I was
nasty.
down for longer with that.
I know.
The fracture.
Then the fracture, yeah.
And I came to you. Yeah, I sat on your table, and I was literally in tears over this injury because I couldn't run, and running was like the only thing that made me happy in life. And you told me enough, no more tears, no crying, go find something else to be good at.
Absolutely.
So I signed up for swim lessons at the YMCA because I didn't know how to swim. I took 6 weeks of swim lessons with an instructor. Somehow she rated me like a 1 on the 0 to 5 list, which I convinced that 0 means you're going to drown.
You're going to drown? Here's a buoy?
Yeah. And then, you know, and it was horrible. And if anybody has learned how to swim before, oh, it's snowing outside. My kids
oh my
are
gosh,
knocking on
I
the
see
door.
it. You get snowed on.
So, if you've tried to swim from knowing nothing, I promise it gets easier. It might be a year before it gets easier, but it does get easier.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was ever going to click, ever. You have experienced the same.
Absolutely.
You know, I think in your swim, so I don't drown in the pool now. I can actually get back and forth.
Not drowning is a good start.
And so then it's like, well, I'm swimming and I'm running. I need to get a bike and do this triathlon thing. Yeah. I had a bad bike accident in college where I went over the handlebars and smashed my face and knocked out my teeth. And
oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I hadn't been on a... Yeah.
Wow. I never knew that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had to have, like, my teeth set it. Yeah, I still have a chip in one of my front teeth from it. Wow. And so I was afraid of the bike, and I hadn't ridden a bike in 20 years. And I got a bike, and, you know, at Montclair Bread, and I got like a hybrid, and they're like, well, no, you're going to want a road bike. This isn't enough for you. I'm like, no, it's enough. And I literally rode around the block and came back, and I'm like, yeah, I need a road bike. I need to go faster.
Yes.
And so that I competed in my first triathlon that year and I placed my age group at the Jersey Girl Triathlon.
Of course you did. That was
Mare,
awesome. I remember that.
We
yes.
were there together.
I was there. Yeah. Yes, I was there when you stood on the podium. Not bad for your first go around.
I mean, honestly, like, if you didn't yell at me and tell me to go be good at something else, I wouldn't have gotten in the pool. And now, like, during this pandemic thing, if I couldn't swim right now, I would go insane. That is the one thing that is settling me.
Well, it's been awesome to see how you just took something that was, so, devastating in that moment, and how you have this whole other sport of triathlon. You have multiple modes of training. And I mean, that is just tremendous. And I hope more people that are listening to this, take that advice. Whenever I have a runner on my table, I always say, I want you to love one other form of movement, because little things will come up. And if you have some other mode of training, then you can keep yourself mentally and physically engaged and active, and it helps so much with the recovery process. So that's just tremendous.
Yeah, and even if you can't compete, like, I think Allie's watching. She's, an Olympic trials qualifying marathon runner.
I'm trying to get her to do triathlon, by the way. Allie, I know you're listening.
I know.
You got to get on the bike.
But she doesn't have to. She can be in the pool, but
she needs to do
does 2 or 3 swim workouts a week, and she's like freaking badass in the pool. Yeah. And it's the best recovery. It's weightless. It's awesome.
She's gotten faster because of swimming, so we're going to get her on the bike. We'll keep working on that.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of the bike, we've alluded to this moment. So, take us back to that day in August of 2018, with the bike, and, tell us a little bit about what happened.
All right. You just can't count how many times I cried today because I'm not a crier. This one's going to push me.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was training for the Ironman Lake Placid 70.3 triathlon, so half Ironman distance, and that would be 1.2 miles in the water, 56 miles on the bike, and then a half marathon run. Right? Do you know?
Yep. That's it.
So, like, right? You've done
that. That's it.
So, and it was August 18th. The race was early September, like the first or second.
It was like the 9th or something. Yeah.
Right. So I was on my last peak week before tapering down. So I was out for my longest ride of the plan. And I was out with my friend Yana. We did all of our long rides together. She was also training for the same race. And the night before, I hosted a joint birthday party with me and my partner Brad. Were born a week apart, so we had all of our family and friends here, and we had this great night. And I went out the next morning, and it was like just over 40 miles. It happened to be my longest ride of the plan. We went out to Chatham and came back around, and so I was like 38 miles in. I was 2 miles away from home, coming through West Orange to get to Montclair, and we were getting stopped at every light, every light we were getting stopped. And then I saw this one turn yellow. I picked up the pace because we were not gonna get stopped at another light. So I was like, I know this now. I didn't know at the time, but we were flying down this like little hill, and this guy opened his car door in front of me. It was raining that day, not like pouring rain, just like misty out. The ground was wet.
Yeah.
I swerved to my left to avoid the car door, which I did. But when I did that, I lost control of my bike, and the wheels slipped out from under me, and I landed with the full impact on my hip. There was a group of cyclists behind us. I yelled for Yana. The cyclist behind us stopped and made a human wall around me. I was just past an intersection in the middle of the road. So they stayed with me until the cops got there, so that I didn't get run over. And then the ambulance came. I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know. They wouldn't let me move. They strapped me to a board. I did not have a concussion. I was wearing my helmet. It was dented, but I never lost consciousness.
Right.
I just knew that it hurt to move. So then they put me in the ambulance, and if you've ever been strapped to a gurney in an ambulance, it moves around. I get motion sickness on a good day. I can't swing with the kids. And I thought I was going to lose it, in the back of this ambulance. We went to Newark, to University Hospital, and I remember, so you can just see up because your head's strapped down, and they were going to cut you'll like that. They were going to cut my cycling gear off. And I'm like, no, it unzips my zips. Don't cut it.
Don't ruin it.
So they didn't cut it off, and everything just hurt really bad when they moved me. And if you've ever had pain, like IT band pain, that's what it felt like times 10. I was convinced that my hip had popped out of its socket. And, you know, I watched Grey's Anatomy and like see how horrible it is when they pop your stuff back in. And I was terrified of them like wrapping a sheet around me and popping my hip back in. Yeah. So I go in, you know, and there's, they take me in for x-rays. They made me move myself from the table to the x-ray table because they didn't know what was wrong with me, and there were just like so many missteps along the way. And
that must
then,
have been tough.
You know, I'm texting you from the ER, and they came in and they said, you know, you fractured your pelvis. And I was supposed to be on a plane going to San Francisco the next day.
I remember that, yeah.
And I was like, okay. And I was texting you at the time. You're like, yeah, they're just going to give you like a key or, you know, crutches. Yeah. You'll be fine. And I'm like, oh, yeah, stress fracture. No problem. I'm going to be on that plane. And then they're like, you might need surgery. And I was like, what? I don't need surgery. Okay. You know, I was just happy it wasn't like they weren't going to pop anything back in. And then they came and told me that it wasn't a fracture, it was shattered. And
shattered, yeah.
So the ball joint acted like a hammer into the socket and pulverized it. And it was pushed so far up that my left leg was 2 inches shorter when I was admitted into the hospital than my right leg. Wow. And I still didn't know it was that bad, you know? And then they got me in my room, and then the next thing I knew, I was being woken up by a nurse that was prepping me for surgery. And they at that point, they hadn't told me that it was definitely surgery. Apparently, not only was this whole mess going on, but I had internal bleeding. And I learned that all of your blood vessels flow through your pelvis, and it's one of the most life-threatening injuries you can have. So then I was by myself, going into surgery. I've never been under anything before. And
scary. Oh my gosh.
I woke up with a 14-inch incision and 3 tubes coming out of me to drain whatever it was.
Oh my gosh.
You know, and that was yeah, so I was in the hospital for 8 days. I think it was like day 4 or 5 before I was able to sit up on my own. It was really dark that time. That hospital's not a great place to be. It's definitely not, you know. It's a trauma center in Newark. The guy next to me in the ER died of a gunshot wound.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You see everything there.
You see everything. And you
mentioned, yeah, go ahead.
The surgeon that put me back together with 2 plates, 12 screws, and a pin.
A lot of hardware.
Yeah. He is, you know, top of his game. There's no one better. I mean, maybe there's people better than him. I think there's no one better than him.
No,
when he finally met with me, he told me that it would be a year before I could consider running again.
I remember that.
That we were going to work on walking and going up and down stairs. So.
Well, we'll get to that, but we shattered that goal. But we'll talk about that one. And for those of you that are listening, you know, Rachel is an incredible writer. I don't know if you've ever looked at her blogs. I mean, just, you know, the stories that you tell kind of along the journey is just tremendous. And I like, you know, so many times when people have certain things like this happen to them, you oftentimes just hear about kind of the fairy tale ending. But you were really good at talking about kind of the dark places, you know, the kind of the real side to it. So, you know, maybe you can give us like what were some of the lows that you kind of experienced along the way.
So yeah, I made notes.
Yeah.
I think The lows. So, in, I was on a lot of pain medication, and, one of the hardest things being on that pain medication was going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And it became such a low point that I took myself off all the meds just so that I could eliminate that pain. And people don't talk about that much, but that it's pretty intense. Like,
yeah, it's real. Yes.
Just the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I think the hardest thing is, I'm so fiercely independent. I don't need anybody for anything. And then all of a sudden, overnight, I can't do anything by myself.
Wow.
One of the absolute lowest points for me was, Josie was 10, my daughter, and I had to have her stay with me to take care of me. She had to put my socks on for me. I'm like, depending on my 10-year-old daughter to take care of me and putting her in this position, it's the last thing I want her to be in. I had to tell her, I hope no kids are watching, I had to fess up that there's no such thing as the tooth fairy so she could help me put money under her brother's pillow. So it's just like, and she did. And
yeah.
I mean, she is fiercely independent too. And
like
the whole thing brought us closer together, but I didn't, she shouldn't have had to be in that place.
Yeah.
And that was really gut wrenching for me. And,
sure.
I'm looking at my, not driving. I couldn't do anything by myself. So, even coming to my appointments with you, I couldn't get there without having to ask somebody to drive me and wait for me and help me get inside. And just like all of that, like getting from the sofa to my bed, I couldn't do by myself. So
all these new logistics,
everything. And that was really low. And then I remember and I know you're going to ask me about this later, but like one of the low things, I remember somebody asking me, coming up, and I was just like starting to become mobile, and they said, do you miss running or biking more? I'm like, I can't even walk. I don't really care about running and biking. I can't even walk.
Now that you bring that up, I have a few things that I pulled off your blog, and I'm going to read them. Hold on. It's, because your blog, it just had, Mary and I were looking at your blog, it had us just cracking up just in some of the things, the worst things that people said to you. So I have a few here. It could have been worse. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. This is your body's way of telling you to slow down. This is the risk this is the risk you take when this is why I don't. How much longer before you can, and are you sad you can't, whatever it be. I was blown away, and I was cracking up the way that you kind of brought that up. But I guess with those things being said, what might be something better that you might recommend for someone to say who's experiencing like real,
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I remember everybody that said those things to me too. What can I do to help? That's what you should say to anybody going through anything. What can I do to help?
Yeah, I love it.
I'm here for you. What can I do to help? Do you need me to listen to you vent? Do you need me to bring you some food? Do you need me to pick up groceries? Do you need me to make your kids' beds? Like, what can I do to help? And sometimes it's just being on the other end of a text message,
Sure.
It's not
always a big thing.
No. So that's it. And I had a lot of those people.
Yeah, and speaking of people, I was just thinking about, despite all the mental and physical pain, what were some of the highs? And I know one of the highs is definitely just how community rallied around you, because I saw and witnessed, so many people that brought you to the appointments, like different folks, picking you up, taking you, home and whatever else. But, do you have a couple other highs?
So definitely the community. My family was fed breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 6 weeks straight. The community organized a meal train and kept me fed, and people came. I had people come and help me clean the house, and you know, when I was released, I wasn't supposed to be released to the hospital. I was supposed to go straight to an assisted facility, and I had some insurance issues, and the doctor wouldn't release me because I couldn't go up my stairs to my apartment. And one of my friends, Chris Tyberski, is on the EMT squad, and he got the chair so that he could strap me to this chair and carry me into my apartment so I could get released a month or a week early and not have to be in the hospital anymore.
I never knew that. Wow.
So yeah. So it was like really the community, and having this community of runners through Fueled by Doughnuts and through the bakery, not just the runners, but like all of my mom friends and customers and everyone really helped me through that. And I wrote down some of my highlights here. And, you know, most of them involve you. I still, like, taking my first step with you and Dr. C, there were so many things that you pushed me to do that I didn't think I was ready for, and I didn't think I was physically capable of doing. And when you took my crutches away and told me that I was okay, that you would catch me, you held my hand, and I took a step unassisted for the first time, and that was my first step towards being independent again. And I will never forget that in a million years. That was definitely, of all of the things I've accomplished in that recovery, the first step was the greatest of all.
I was starting to return.
Yeah, and then I can't remember what came. I think I ran my first mile. That you told me that I could go out. Well, funny, you know, I never, and this is important for anybody that's listening, I never did anything outside of what my doctors told me I could. Either my surgeon or you, Dr. Mays. I operated within, to the fullest extent of what I was allowed to do, and not beyond. Right. So you know, I remember I was doing these like single-legged jumps and hops and stuff in your office, and it was like, well, hey, so how's this different from running? And I remember you shaking your head and like, well, it's not really. And you gave me the clearance to go and run a mile. I think it was like 10 minutes, and I could run for like 30 seconds, and then I had to stop for a minute, and I did it with my kids. And they came with me, and that was really magical. And then I think the end all was Dr. C making me jump on that box.
Yeah, the box jump.
I was certain I was going to I thought I was going to, you know, hit my head against it. It still is kind of scary, but like, how tall is that box?
Yeah, I think on that day, it was a minimum of 20 inches. I think it was the 20-inch box jump. It was either that or 24 inches. So it was somewhere between 20 and 24. But that was a big jump.
And he wouldn't sign off. He wouldn't sign off when
you're not leaving until you
until I jumped on that box, and I did it.
You did it. You did it. I mean, you just your tenaciousness. You just attacked the rehab, and like you said, you know, you stayed within all of the guidelines. And for people who are listening, you know, doing stuff that, you know, is being guided. I mean, we got you to where you needed to be, but you had the strong mindset, like you showed up day after day with the right mentality. And that's how you're able to go from where you are to now we're going to talk about kind of your present day return to sport. just how you've been able to come back and be so successful. For a lot of people, they might have been sidelined for good and said, I'm never doing this, but that was not your attitude. It's never been your way. So maybe just tell us where you are present day. How did you overcome the fear of getting back on the bike?
Well, one of the things too, I remember the surgeon telling me, I said, you know, it was like my first post-op visit and I still was in a wheelchair. I couldn't walk. And I said, can I go to PT? And he's like, yeah, but you can't really do anything when you get there. So like, there's really no point now, but there, you know, you can go, but there's really nothing you can do.
Yeah. Don't want to hear that.
I know. So I was like, okay, but I can go, right? So, and I think I made an appointment from his office. And I might have come directly.
It was pretty soon right after. So
yeah, and
contact.
And I, you know, I couldn't walk. I came in a wheelchair, and I think you had to help me on the table.
Yep.
And I remember just like moving my foot back and forth. And but it was the ritual of being able to go somewhere other than my house to your office and being able to do these exercises with your supervision and moving.
Yes.
Because the more I moved, even if it was just moving my foot back and forth, the better I felt, and the less these movements hurt as the weeks progressed. I just think that any movement at all is the key to how I was able to recover from this. And then you mentioned the bike and the pool. So I got cleared to get in the pool first.
Yep.
And I walked with my crutches. It's like just under a mile to the Y, and I crutched over there. And because I didn't want anybody around. I just wanted to do it on my own time and to know that I could do it on my own. And I got, you know, I went through the locker room and got my clothes off and got to the pool, and it was this group of senior citizens doing their aqua aerobics.
Nice.
And they watched me get into the pool, and they cheered for me when I got in.
Oh, that's great.
And then that weightlessness, it was just so great swimming that
such a freeing moment, I imagine.
Yeah, and then the bike, I also was cleared to ride the bike before I could run.
Yeah.
And John Williams and Brad, my partner, had to lift me onto my stationary bike.
Wow.
And then I rode it for an hour, and I didn't want to get off.
Oh my God!
But I couldn't physically get on and off myself, but I could pedal.
But right.
And it helped. And then I had friends with me the first time that I went on the road. I'm still it's still hard for me to ride on the road. Yeah. But again, you know, I just ripped the Band-Aid off. I knew if I didn't do it, that it'd be another 20 years before I rode my bike, like after my accident in college. And I wasn't going to let that happen. So I just did it. And I'm very careful. And I try to go out with other people. But, you know, I just did it.
Oh, that's tremendous, because that is you know, you're absolutely right. And, you know, ripping the Band-Aid early, because the longer you would put that off, I think the bigger it then becomes. I mean, it is a big deal, but also in your mind. And I think, you know, I couldn't have, you know, asked someone to execute that piece any better than you did.
Right.
And you're a damn good rider too. So that would have been a talent lost if you didn't return to that. So, I mean, that's great. And I've even, you know, in talking to you now, you know, amazingly enough, you know, maybe kind of speak to some of the performance things you're doing now, but now you're even faster than you were before. Like, I am. You're crushing stuff.
Yeah. A few things happened during my recovery that were not, you know, athletic per se. Mm-hmm. In the beginning, the one thing that I could really control was my diet. So I really focused on eating foods that fueled my recovery and fueled my athletic endeavors. Yeah. And it became very intentional about what I was cooking and eating, because it's the one thing that I could really do at the time.
Absolutely.
And so I eat really well now. I still eat donuts. Actually, I don't. I eat Yum Buns because they're really, like, the Yum Buns are just like, they take the cake for me. But I treat myself.
Yes.
Right now I'm consuming tons of cookies. But I also eat, all whole grains, and lots of vegetables and protein. And I just make sure that I'm deliberate about what I'm eating.
That's great.
And then I read a lot of books while I was coming back, and one of them that really stood out to me was Matt Fitzgerald, How Bad Do You Want It?
How Bad Do You Want It? Okay, I have to check it out.
If you haven't been able to read that yet, it's all about athletes of all sport who have gone through some sort of traumatic event or accident or something that they've had to overcome, and he talks about how it's created a resiliency and how they've become better athletes than they were ever destined to be before whatever the event was.
Who was the author again?
Matt Fitzgerald.
Matt Fitzgerald, okay.
Who is currently battling like the long-term after effects of COVID right now. And he's writing about that. So he's a good guy to follow. I'll take a look at that. So smart. So that was that I really believe that this whole thing that I've gone through put me in a position to be more resilient in my athletic endeavors, to be more comfortable being in pain, but above all else, to be more grateful and to run happy and with gratitude.
Right.
I used to run angry a lot, I would run out all my aggressions, and and now whenever I'm feeling like, I just want to lay in bed, I remember how grateful I am that I can run.
Yes.
And I can swim, and I can bike, and and that's made the biggest difference. And I remember to smile.
That's great. Movement is such a gift. And it's like when you have, the ability to move in full capacity, you have to just see that as an opportunity and just, excuse me, and really appreciate the fact that you're able to, go for a long bike ride or swim or run when, obviously there's so many people who can't for various reasons.
Yes.
That movement is really a gift, and everybody should really, appreciate that blessing that we're given.
Yes. Yeah. And also, I'm just not that important. None of us are that important. This isn't, it's not, this isn't my paycheck. And it is for some people, their paycheck. It's not my paycheck. Nobody's paying me for this. I'm just going to have fun and be grateful that I get the opportunity.
That's great. And not to just quickly pivot, but, obviously we've really focused on your resilience as far as physical injury, but you also, being in the food industry during COVID times, have had to overcome a lot of obstacles there. How would you say some of those things parallel and your approach and being able to overcome those things?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing that we just talked about. I operate to the extent of what I'm allowed to. So, it's the same thing with the COVID. I think some of the biggest challenges for me operating a business during COVID is keeping my staff safe and educating my consumers. Because I think what a lot of people fail to realize is that these executive orders that are issued, I'm hearing at the same time that everyone else is hearing. Right. And you too, as as a health professional, there's no one giving you any guidance on this or saying, hey, listen, tomorrow we're going to announce this thing, so be ready. No. It's like, that's only if you choose to consume the information.
Right.
So it's like, oh, I just happened to see something pop up in my Facebook feed that restaurants are closed to, this or that or whatever. And then you're like, am I an essential business?
You're like, how does the bakery?
Where's the fine print and what am I allowed to do? And so I guess for me and for you as well, I'm lucky that the nature of what I do for a living allows me to already operate in the safety zones. We're already wearing gloves. We're already sanitizing. You know, we know that. And then the way that I survived, first off, I didn't have a choice. I can't close. I'm like you know, I think there was, who was it? Gabrielle Hamilton wrote a piece in the New York Times. She's the head chef for Prune, the owner and head chef for Prune. And she said she could float for a week. She could float her bills and her payroll and everything for a week. And there's no like safety net for this. We've all extended ourselves so far as business owners to keep this thing going because it's what we believe in, but not necessarily because we make a ton of money doing it. We just enjoy it. And so there was no option. I had to stay in business if I wanted to continue to pay my rent, if I continue to feed my kids. I was going to stay in business. So I started listening to what people want and then thinking about what I need. And at the time, it was groceries. And I didn't want to go to the grocery store any more than anybody else did. But I had the resources to bring the groceries to me through the vendors that I already use at the bakery. And I just started bundling that and offering it to my community. And we started selling milk and butter and eggs and vegetables. And
it was
flour.
great. I got groceries there.
Yes.
It was great. Yeah.
And we continue. We're still doing that. We're still offering that. And you know, anytime somebody emailed us and said, I can't get, you know, chicken breast. Oh, okay, well, I can. And we put it on the menu. And then that's how we stayed alive. And I cut my hours so that I could have one team here, 10 people here during all of our operational hours. So we have one solid team that works together every day in the same way every day. And, you know, we sat down, we discussed it. We're all in this together. That's a little overused, but like our team really formed the ideas of how we were going to operate together. I do not operate my business as a dictator. It's all a collaborative effort with everyone involved. We're all in this shit together. Let's figure out how we're going to sail it. So that's and we're still doing that today.
I mean, you always do an amazing job of listening to the customer, the consumer, and really pivoting to be able to cater, you know, to whatever it is that they need. I mean, I've just seen you do that in so many different ways. You know, it's always incredible to watch you do that. So that's tremendous. And you know, just kind of a couple like kind of final thoughts, a couple like little questions here that I had. You know, if someone was going through, let's say, like a similar physical or business challenge and asks you for advice, what might be one piece of advice you'd share?
Just move. I think, especially with the physical challenges, just move to the extent that you can. And it doesn't have to be a big movement. It can be just like spelling the alphabet with your toes. But
we do that.
I know. But just move. And even in the business stuff, I think people get so stuck in what are people going to think? And, you know, I stopped care. I do care, but you know, as far as anyone knows, I stopped caring about that a long time ago. And I just tried to, you know, my friend Kelly, our friend Kelly, Hilden, she shared with me this idea of having it written down, the people's names who can care about you, who you can care about what they think. And that's a list of 5 or less people whose opinions matter to you. And if they're not on the list, you can't care what they think.
I like that.
So that might be your partner. It might be your kids. It might be your business partner. If their name's not on the list, they don't get to care. You don't get to care about what they think. So
I love it.
You know, you need to, and you need in business too. It's about moving. Don't think about it too much. Just get to the next step. That might not work. There's so many things that I've done that don't work. and I just dust myself off and I go to the next thing.
Yeah.
And none of you have seen those things that didn't work. Like, they all happened. They were very public, but you guys don't even remember them. And I'm like, no, I fail all the time. Remember that thing? And nobody remembers that thing.
You know, it's great to watch you literally move in so many different directions, especially from the business perspective. And that's even really encouraged us, like, okay, you don't have to know how to do everything about whatever direction you're trying to move. Just start going that way and then start navigating.
Yes.
But for so many people, I think it's just getting over the fear, just to overcome inertia, get it moving in some direction and then start to navigate.
Yeah, and the other thing too is like thinking through, okay, if this doesn't work, what are we going to do? Think through the what ifs. And that'll help you have the confidence to do it because you've already thought about plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E.
Yeah.
What if? Then it's not a surprise.
Right.
If those things happen and you already have thought about how you're going to move through that. And we do that a lot here. Like, okay, what are the possibilities of us failing with this setup and what will we do to adjust?
Wow. All right. Final thought, final question.
Okay.
I'm checking my notes here. So instead of saying I've had enough, I'm tapping out, what makes it worth it to keep striving and get back in the arena?
Oof.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know. First off, I just don't feel like I have the option to fail. I have so many people depending on me, my staff, my kids, and I want to be a good role model.
Yeah.
And I do care what they think and I care what I show them. So it's important to me to show them that I can move forward.
Absolutely.
And then I know from my past experiences how good I feel when I get there. Yeah. And I know that I will feel terrible if I don't try.
You don't try.
So I let myself keep trying. And I also let myself have days where I just lay in bed and watch bad TV. And
that's great.
And
you can say that again. I think sometimes people need to hear that. It's okay to cut yourself a break. Yeah.
And, I had one of those days yesterday. I just all afternoon, I fell asleep on the sofa. I showed up late, like 20 minutes late for this meeting. It was terrible. But I did it. I ate lots of I just ate comfort food all day yesterday. And this morning I got up and it's a new day and I'm ready to get back out there.
And I think that's great for people to hear because I think so many people see you as this superhuman, and it's nice to hear that you have these down times because you have to recharge and you can't be going 300% every single day.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I do, this is the biggest misconception about me. I sleep a lot. I get 8 hours of sleep a night.
That's great.
Don't stop going from the second I wake up until the second I go to sleep. But I go to bed at 7 o'clock at night.
Wow.
When my head hits the pillow, I am out. I do everything that I can possible to ensure that I get 8 hours of sleep a night. And then I'm productive the next day.
And that's the secret sauce. That's the secret sauce. So many of us don't get that kind of sleep. I always ask patients if we hit a stagnant point in recovery, I always ask about sleep, nutrition, hydration, and sleep is the #1 component that you often need more of.
Yeah.
Well, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us on the Get Better, Be Better conversation, for being just vulnerable and sharing, stuff that, can be a little tough to share. I hope all the viewers were inspired like I was, and just hearing the story again, even though I knew the story, I still get the chills in hearing it. Thank you to our viewers who have tuned in. You can check us out, ironpt.com/conversations. We will have the conversation posted there, and I believe my tech people will have things on Instagram Live for a bit, but we'll figure it out. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, you got it. We'll see ya.
Bye.
Bye.